Welcome to the SkillTorch Disrupt podcast, the podcast where we dive into the world of technology, innovation, and leadership. I'm your host, Malika, and today we have a thought-provoking episode dedicated to the power of female leadership. At SkillTorch, we're not only passionate about technology, but also shaping the future in talent in the AI, machine learning, Adtech, and gaming industries across the US and Europe. In today's episode, we will explore why it's crucial to take women to take the lead and discuss and inspire female leaders who have made a significant impact and delve into personal experiences that have shaped our guest journey. I am thrilled to have an exceptional guest with us today, Dianna Colasurdo, the Managing Director and Head of US, East and Europe at Axios, who brings a wealth of knowledge and insights from her own professional experiences. But before we hear from Dianna, let me introduce her. She's a respected leader, a lovely person in general, making waves in the industry, and has a passion for empowering women, and also including myself. That's kind of how we ended up getting connected together via LinkedIn. So with a background in the digital space, she has not only excelled in her own career, but has also paved the way for others to succeed. Dianna, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for that very kind introduction.
Oh, no problem. You're so kind.
That was very nice. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to talk to everyone and to speak more about female empowerment, female leadership, all the things that I think matter so much, and especially in our industry.
Amazing. Well, tell the listeners a bit more about yourself, your career, your journey, and beyond.
Happy to. So my experience is interesting. There's a lot of sort of male-dominated industries that I've worked in, from politics to tech to media, which I think, typically has more of a female-focused contingent, but certainly a lot of male leaders at the top. And I've been really privileged to have incredible leaders that have helped me and pave my career path. As you mentioned, I'm now a managing director at Axios,
Amazing.
Which is a place that I absolutely love. And they've got a lot of mentors at the top that have helped us, from the male founders who are really important in shaping our women's plus ERG. And then also, from being at the Walt Disney Company and in tech companies like Rocket Fuel and Twitter. And then again in the United States Senate, where I had a really wonderful experience working for a male senator who also had a number of ladies at the top of his top of his team. So looking forward to diving in.
Nice. So again, just to illustrate, this podcast is about women in leadership. It's targeted for everyone. But I think what our listeners would want to hear is a bit more about Dianna's journey to senior leadership, but also just like some of the challenges that we may have come across as women in the industry. So I think the first question I'll ask you is, why do you believe it's important for women to be leaders?
Yeah.
Especially now.
Yes. I love this question. And frankly, before I dive into the importance of women as leaders, I want to talk a little bit about, where we are today.
Yeah.
So despite the benefits of women as leaders, only 10% of the Fortune 500 globally in terms of women leadership are companies led by women.
Oh, wow.
So
low.
Still low. We've got work to do, but that's why we're here. That's why we're talking about this.
That's why we're going to make a change.
Exactly. And then, in terms of government, because I do have an interest myself, and I think that's really important in terms of making change, 25% of the Senate, 28% of Congress in the US are women. And then 35% of female representatives in the House of Commons and 27% of the House of Lords in the UK are female-led. So thinking about, across the pond, that's where we're at. And so, when you talk about the benefits of women at the top, when more women are empowered to lead, everyone benefits from that, right?
Yeah,
so first and foremost, there's a lot of studies behind this information. Women are able to multitask, at a higher level. And so
I definitely can multitask. So I think a lot of people here can vouch for that.
I can vouch for that. Even setting up this podcast.
Setting up the podcast, doing my designing, recruitment, sales, running business.
All the things.
So can you.
Thank you. All the things. But as a leader, I think it's really important to not only show your team how multitasking can be important and also focus on leadership skills and helping multiple different members of your team. I think that really leads to a lot of different things like increasing productivity, enhanced collaboration, dedication, empathy. There are so many different benefits of women at the top. So that's sort of why I think it's so important to help shift the focus and make a change in terms of increasing the numbers that we talked about in the beginning.
Yeah, amazing. In terms of female leaders, who do you look up to? I mean, I'll give you my opinion on this. I mean, I really look up to Kate Middleton. I mean, not only she's beautiful, but she also does so much for society. And I like the fact that she's just an absolute natural beauty. And even just her and William, they'll just go to the pub, they'll go to the cinema, and they'll just be like one of us. They don't go out there and say, oh, like, you know, I'm important, I'm special. But she just does so much. She's got 3 children she's bringing up by herself. You know, she's come from a background which is not from the royal family. Mm-hmm. And she's now stepping into this like really important, crucial, difficult role. And she's just an absolute natural when it comes to that. Yeah. I really inspire to be her. I think she's amazing.
Oh, that's wonderful. I mean, yeah, she's a wonderful leader for the UK. Absolutely. And, you know, there's some personal and then more public women that I look up to as well. Mm-hmm. So in my own personal life, I had a manager at the Walt Disney Company who I just absolutely adore, frankly. She is an SVP on the sales side at the Walt Disney Company. She had an incredible career before that, you know, at CBS and Entercom and some of these, you know, really revered organizations. But beyond that, she's someone who, you know, really led with her heart. So no matter what she said to you, even if she was giving, you know, difficult feedback, you know that she was giving it with every single consideration in mind. And so it made you want to be a better person yourself or a better sales executive yourself. And so I really appreciated that. She also commanded a room. Everyone respected her and respects her now. She's just one of those women who also empowered women on her team. She cared so much about DEI. She was really someone who was a light, and every time she, you know, surrounded herself with anyone, you know, all of those people were going to learn something and we're going to get a lot of tangible, important bits of information from her in every single conversation. So can't say enough about her.
I hope she's listening to
I
this.
hope she's I really just admire her so much. And then in terms of more of a public figure, Whitney Wolfe Herd, the founder of Bumble, is someone I also really look up to. The fact that she took sort of an issue around sexual harassment and, as Robin Roberts says, sort of made her mess her message. In the US, she is an anchor of Good Morning America there. And this is Robin Roberts, talks about making her mess a message. I think Whitney Wolfe Herd did that really well. Obviously, you know, CSR, in terms of CSR being pillars of company structures, Whitney Wolfe Herd literally took an issue that she had personally with sexual harassment and made that a pillar of Bumble. You know, not tolerating sexual harassment, letting women make the first move, and turning that into $1 billion valuation and being one of the youngest women female founders. I just think that she is incredible and I love her story and I will always continue to follow her as well.
Amazing. Yeah, no, I didn't actually know too much about like her and her achievements, so that's really interesting insight.
It's such an interesting story, to even dive deeper into.
Absolutely. And I mean, I've personally used the app and I can just say, you know, the algorithms and the way like you know, match with certain people and like the fact that women have to start a conversation, I think it just gives us the power to take control of the situation. Anyway, moving on to more of the professional elements here. So, I mean, we've already talked about some of the experience you've had directly with female leaders. Tell us a bit more about some of the work that you're doing, you know, going back to Axios. Tell us some of the work that you're doing with Axios, especially with relation to, you know, conveying senior leadership, especially on the female side.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, at Axios, there are, I think, a lot of incredible female leaders. We actually just had a really interesting article come out in one of our newsletters called Finish Line.
Oh, yes, I saw that.
Shameless plug for one of our founders who had really fantastic insight on how to be a mentee. And so my manager, who I also look up to, my current manager, who I just really admire and look up to very much, is just a master at being a mentee and a mentor, quite frankly. And so she has worked with our founder, who is a male, and I do think there's a lot to be said about having a male mentor as well. But just being, really, really direct, really concise about her own vision for her future, and stating very clearly like what she wants. And then, having a number of different ways in which to structure what that looks like and how to allow for mentorship. And this is something that Axios is very clear on. And again, this was outlined in Finish Line on Axios. Hunger was the first one. So being hungry within your career, having a really long career arc, and knowing what that looks like in your mind, having purpose. So, I just talked about Whitney Wolfe Herd, like working with purpose, having passion, being self-aware. In this particular write-up, my boss was very well aware of the things she's good at, things that she might need to work on, and also being aware of what she's ready for in her own career. I think she stated very clearly to our founder that she wanted to be a CEO one day. And, that's something that she's maybe not ready for now, though I think many of us think she'd be amazing at that, but something that she aspires to do. Having self-confidence. And I think this is something that a lot of women, are not necessarily, that's something that they don't necessarily have as much as men, so I think that's something that even myself as a woman, I'm constantly working on. Self-confidence is so key, especially as we're working to sit at that table, that C-suite table. But self-confidence is huge. And then action, just being ruthless at taking action on the things that you want. And that's something, all of those things are things that I learn every day at Axios.
Amazing. I mean, that was interesting when you talked a bit more about the self-confidence piece. Generally, when people, come and talk to me, because obviously I'm quite an extroverted person, they think, oh yeah, Malika, she's got so mumuch confidence, she's really outspoken. But honestly, deep down, like, I definitely do have like a small insecurity there where I'm like, if there's like there's like a bunch of like senior people or like, males there, like, I feel like I've got to try and speak louder, and like, I feel like I can kind of get held back a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know if that is because I'm a female, or maybe I just see myself as being smaller than them. But I think it's one of those things. I think you've just got to go out there and ignore the preconceptions of what it is to be a female, and just go out there. But unfortunately, in tech, I think that I've definitely seen situations where to this day, women do get discriminated against, or at the same time, there's still studies out there where, men are, being paid more than women and things like that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think there's improvements that have been made, but I still feel that we're on a journey.
Absolutely.
Equality, yeah.
Yeah. And I love, sort of talking about the strengths and weaknesses that everyone brings to the table, but the strengths that women bring to the table as women. And one of the things I always think about in my personal journey and also at large is sort of empathy, and what women bring to the table with empathy. And, you just talked about this, like feeling maybe meek in certain situations. And I think that is one of the quotes that I love from another female leader that I really look up to, Jacinda Ardern. She has said, and this is about like assertiveness, right? Also empathy is tied into this, but one of the criticisms that I have faced over the years is that I'm not aggressive enough or assertive enough, or maybe somehow because I'm empathetic, it means that I'm weak. I totally rebel against that. I refuse to believe that you cannot be both compassionate and strong. And, I think even in times when you maybe feel weak or take a step back, I think, women bring to the table active listening. Like, we're not always the ones that have to yell over the table or, be the loudest. And with that, we bring active listening. We bring compassion and empathy, and multitasking, as we talked about at the top. And, Jacinda Ardern led New Zealand through multiple different crises. She's revered as one of the, most amazing global leaders, I think, by many. There's shootings in Christchurch that were horribly, had an underpinning there from white supremacy and the COVID-19 pandemic. And she displayed incredible compassion, but also empathy and incredible strength in those moments. So I feel like strength and empathy aren't mutually exclusive. I would argue perhaps that they don't cancel each other out. They actually reemphasize each other. So I really love that sort of point that you mentioned in terms of your own personal experience.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then just talking about professional senior leadership, you've also got the CEO of PepsiCo, Indra Nooyi, I think that's how you say her name, which obviously PepsiCo is one of the world's largest food and beverage companies. You know, she's typically been known as for her strong leadership skills and a commitment to diversity and inclusion. Again, that's a slightly separate topic, but relevant because for me especially, you know, I personally come from an underrepresented community. You know, my background's Iranian, so you know, I definitely feel, you know, with that and going into the industry and in the workplace, you know, I think just like I'm really inspired by people who really like focus on diversity and inclusion. So she's really demonstrated that sort of empathy piece by advocating for work-life balance and supporting the well-being of her employees. So for women, you know, taking time out, you know, because they've got children or they're, you know, bringing up a child. So yeah, I really like some of the work that she's done at PepsiCo.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I think, I know we've talked about work-life balance before. That is something that is so important, and having female leaders for me has been pivotal just to enable, you know, family planning. We see this in the government as well. It's so critical to have truly leaders who understand what their people are facing and faced with, and appropriately allocating resources for them to go through that. And that in turn yields loyalty. And I think that is something that keeps people in seat. And they really do value that in terms of being loyal to organizations as well.
Absolutely.
So I mean, good for her.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I've come across, you know, especially in recruitment as well, there's you know, there's several female founders out there that own recruiting businesses, and they, you know, they're a working home mom, and you know, they're absolutely smashing it and doing really well in their careers, you know, even though they're, you know, bringing up a child in their, you know, day-to-day lives. Talking of women specifically on a personal standpoint, I thought I'd just share this, but look, you know, women, we have periods, you know, that's just one of the things that we have to go through. And you know, we don't receive paid menstrual leave, but I will say that Spain is actually one of the first countries in Europe to actually offer paid menstrual leave. So then they have the option to call in sick in case of incapacitating menstruation. So this might be something that governments might look at in Europe, who knows? But I think it's just something to, you know, consider when they're taking time out. And again, like with work-life balance, I personally feel that when I'm taking time out and I'm going on a holiday or a vacation, I always come back productive and I always come back and produce results. And I'm sure my old bosses can vouch for this. You know, every time I come back from holiday, you know, my numbers are up.
Yeah. I think feeling refreshed and at a level in which you can be the most productive, no matter what it is, whether it be, you know, from a menstrual cycle or from a vacation, that is critical. And so good for Spain for recognizing that. That's again, when I talk about Jacinda Ardern, I feel like she led the way in many different decisions that she made, and so that's a really salient leadership position to take for Spain.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I don't want this to just be, you know, targeted or focused on females. I mean, even for males too. There are more and more companies that I've seen where they're really taking parental leave, and especially for men, is, you know, really important. They're giving increasing amounts of parental leave to fathers. I mean, my dad, for example, he's a single dad, you know, he's brought up 3 children. So I can just see how important it is, not just for women, but also for men to be, you know, really recognised for some of the leadership and, you know, home care duties that they have to serve, which comes on to our next topic about male mentors. I can talk about this as well. I mean, I definitely have some really good male mentors that have helped me shape who I am today. One of them, I hope he's listening to this, Lee Walker. He was one of my old bosses at Expand Executive Search. And I joined the business back in 2015. I started off as a recruitment consultant. Had like 3 promotions while I was there for 3 years, but I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for him. Like, not only he was there for my, personal and professional development, he always vouched for me, supported me. But another important thing, he didn't micromanage me, but he was always there to just support me whenever possible. And he would always encourage me to take holidays because he just knew every time I'd go away and come back, I'd deliver. And if I didn't go on holiday, I wasn't producing.
You might be burnt out.
Exactly. Yeah. I just like the fact he recognised that. And I don't, our team was really equal. Actually, no, it wasn't that equal. When I started off, we had about 5 males and I was the only female.
Okay.
But I didn't feel left out. I didn't feel excluded. I really felt like I belonged,
that's nice.
More than anywhere else.
That's nice.
But
I hope he's listening now.
I hope so. And you know what? If he isn't, I will send him the link and hope he pays
take a listen.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, but yes, what about you? Have you got some male mentors that you can talk
about? Absolutely. I mean, the fact of the matter is that most of leadership, we talked about this at the top in terms of 10% of Fortune 500 leaders are female. So that leaves 90% of the others being males or, the unidentified in terms of gender. So many are men is the point that I'm making. So I think that we are now in a place where we do need male mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's massively important. And I've been very lucky as well to have many men be mentors. And that's often happened quite naturally, actually, in terms of having males as mentors and leaders and being really incredible champions of women. I will say Axios is wonderful at this as well. We've got, I mentioned before, an employee resource group called Women's Plus. It's a space where women can be supportive of one another and empowered. And we've got a lot of fun activities within that group as well, such as book clubs and things like that. But the champion of that group is our publisher, Nick Johnston, who is one of those leaders at Axios who's constantly working to ensure that whether it's across the editorial team or the business team, women are at the forefront of decisions and women are at the forefront of promotions and things of that nature. And he's someone who really does walk and talk women's empowerment. So I'm really thankful to have him at the helm there. I think identifying women and identifying men who are champions of everyone, men, women, etc., is also really important. And also it's on women as well to speak up, as I said before, to be very deliberate in your goals, to be deliberate in what you hope to get out of a relationship with your mentor, and to be able to articulate, the breadth and depth of that relationship so that you get the most out of those champions. And I also think that when you work with anyone, whether it be a male or a female, it's really helpful to know that they're human. They've got daughters, mothers, sisters, etc., that they want to see succeed. And so that is critical when we're thinking about this sort of movement of women moving up as well. So I feel like it is a gold when you find a really great mentor in general.
Absolutely. I mean, just, moving away from the professional standpoint. So going back, obviously, I said my background was Iranian. So I was actually born and raised in the UK, but my parents are Iranian. And unfortunately, in Iran, there's definitely still is a lot of, discrimination to this day. Women are seen as like working, stay-at-home mums. Men are seen as the ones that are like going into work, and you probably have all had like the news, Massa Amini, basically got killed for not wearing a headscarf, and it's so sad to see. Even though in the UK and the US, we've made such huge developments in creating diversity and equality, but to this day, like, it's very hard for women in a country like Iran to really step up and be a women leader. And I'm not saying I can be on this podcast today and make a huge difference or anything, but I think it's just really important to recognize and not forget that in certain countries, they don't have that opportunity like we do to really like speak up about things like this. So
my gosh, that is such an amazing point. Sometimes I think we forget how privileged and lucky we are
Yeah.
to have opportunities,
Absolutely.
to have mentors, and to speak our minds about these topics. So that's an incredible point.
Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, I think we've been, gosh, it does go fast, these podcasts, by the way, doesn't it?
Does.
We're
Yeah,
25
I love
minutes already.
talking about with you and about this topic, so it just flies by, which is great.
And I've just noticed we're wearing the same top
We pretty
as
much
well.
match. Yeah.
We match. We've got dark hair.
We didn't plan that.
No, we didn't plan this, guys. But anyway, just wanted to kind of, wrap up this conversation, because I know we've got so quick. So just summarising the key points of discussion. You talked about some of the work that you and also Axios have been doing. You've talked about some of the women you look up to. Women that have mentored you and everything. Is there anything else that you think would really benefit our audience, or just anything that you'd like to add in general?
Yeah, I think the main point that I hope anyone listening, especially women listening to this podcast, can take away is to not be afraid to speak your mind. Again, be very clear. Find mentors. I would just say too that typically happens quite naturally. Yeah. So network, find mentors, be very clear and deliberate in that relationship. Find male mentors. I think that if you're a man listening to this, please be open to championing the women in your life, whether they be professional or even personal, and help them and uplift them and empower them. But at the end of the day, those relationships are really gold. And I think that is a really key point in just empowering women in general. So
absolutely. And just a second point to add, and myself as a business owner, I think it's we can easily just not ask for help, because I think what we see on social media or on LinkedIn, we always see the positives, we always see the good sides, but at the end of the day, like, every one of us does benefit from some sort of advice, coaching, support. And my advice is to any salesperson, wherever they're female, male, or business owner, or even a CEO of a big company, I think don't be afraid to ask for help. Even if it's someone who's more senior than you or junior than you, end of the day, we're all in it together. We're all human. We all have our flaws. We're not perfect.
Absolutely.
And I think the more you go out there and ask for support and mentorship, it will even benefit that person as well. And I think it just really shows your authentic, how authentic you are, and just how genuine of a person you are.
Yeah, I agree. And the final note I'll leave on is that being empathetic and being compassionate as a leader is not a weakness. It is, in my mind, a strength, and those two things are not mutually exclusive. So always feel that you can shine a light on those things, especially as a leader, and people will always remember how you make them feel.
Absolutely.
Those are the big key takeaways.
Yeah, no, I think so. And if anyone disagrees, then feel free to leave a comment. And if there's you might get criticised for that. I don't know. Anyway, I don't want to add further to that discussion. But anyway, just to wrap it up, thank you so much, Dianna,
Thank you,
for joining
for
me
having
on this.
me.
No,
this
absolutely. Yeah, it really was. And I'm glad we've able to do this in person with our setup here. And yeah, I look forward to having dinner with you very later on this evening to celebrate.
Great. I look forward to it, and I look forward to hearing all the comments.
Absolutely.